Hey everybody, Stephen Colbert here. I really wish I could be there, but I can't. So instead, I've placed a bucket on Phil Smith's head, and I'm just going to talk to you through an iPad glued to the front of the bucket. Phil's essentially my meat puppet right now. Anyway, this is exciting. I'm standing outside the place it all began years ago. It was November 1988. The setting? My alma mater, Northwestern University, and its landmark storage shed, Shanley Pavilion. This was the place where the now renowned Lookingglass Theater staked its claim to its professional beginning. Right here, fresh out of college, yet still on campus.
Joy Gregory as Alice, and ensemble cohorts Catlin, DeStasi, Barr, and Cox presented the company's inaugural production, a Dave Kersner adaptation of Lewis Carroll's Through the Lookingglass.
What made these founders believe that starting a theater company was in any way a good idea? Why didn't they follow my employment route post-graduation, making futon frames in the basement of the house I still lived in at the corner of Ridge and Foster? And how is it they have won a Tony Award?
Thank you, and good night.
When I haven't? Come with me now as I travel back in time in search of the Lookingglass Theater Company in search of the Lookingglass Theater Company.
To begin at the beginning, months earlier, several aspiring artists who would be among the founding members of the Lookingglass Ensemble had gathered for a public performance in Scotland at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. These reverse pilgrims crossed the vast Atlantic backwards, bringing with them a David Schwimmer's stage production of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. Apparently, after 4 years of liberal arts education, they only knew one author. And it was there, on these time-worn cobbled streets, in the moonlit shadows of the celebrated Edinburgh Castle, that the big, formative conversation took place. A night into morning conversation of how to build a new theater company, or more importantly, how to build the idea of one that they themselves would pay to go to back home in Chicago. And as they were cheap as all get out, they quickly realized that they would need a really big vision. A vision as wild, surprising, and unwieldy as Wonderland itself. And thus, Lookingglass was born. And, dear listener, oh, how desperately did old Chicago thirst for the big gulp of yet another not-for-profit thespian startup. The second city, of course, was and is first in theater, and therefore all the more difficult to make a mark. But these early explorers proved resistant to the trappings of those harder realities. By avoiding established artistic paradigms as envisioned in pre-dawn Scotland, they aimed to smash the mold with each newly staged narrative and, in doing so, forge a place for themselves in the city's rich and wonderful cultural community. From the get-go, Lookingglass didn't produce plays pulled from the theatrical canon. Stories that fit the bill were mostly internally generated events, conceived anew, and often from heretofore thought to be unadaptable texts. New works and adaptations like The Jungle, The Arabian Nights, La Luna Muda, The Secret in the Wings, In the Eye of the Beholder, The Great Fire, Up Against It, The Idiot, The Vanishing Twin, and Hard Times all had outsized impact, made possible by being custom-built around the collaborative, physical, and imaginative skills of the upstart collective and its growing body of brilliant associates. With an infusion of live music or original composition, of heart-stopping imagery, dance, acrobatics, circus, and ample amounts of sweat into the live theatrical event, Lookingglass generated a wholly new, brand-defying brand of theater.
In the 15 years prior to the unveiling of their permanent home in the Water Tower Waterworks, Lookingglass presented 40 plays in 22 locations across Chicago.
As the company roamed from the south to the west to the north, and then the northwest, southeast, northeast, and southwest, a wide and diverse local and national audience was forming. Shortly after Mary Zimmerman's metamorphosis is really not easy. Mary Zimmerman, Buddy Biebergull, Debbie Bemerman. Shortly after Mary Zimmerman's metamorphosis landed on Broadway, and David Schwimmer's Friends on must-see TV, and halfway through its first 30 years, June 2003 marked the date of the opening of the now iconic and transformational Black Box Theater on Michigan Avenue. This new home ignited an explosion of creativity still reverberating today. Maybe your first show here was Lookingglass Alice. I was lucky enough to catch that show. Moby Dick? Didn't catch that one, but then again, neither did Ahab. 1984, so ahead of its time, it could be called 2018. Trust me, it was another play I didn't see, but I heard great things. A Race Around the World in 80 Days, or Race, How Blacks and Whites Think and Feel About the American Obsession? Take your pick. Or take Cascabel. How does that idea? 30 waiters, a 5-course meal, 150 handcrafted margaritas, 8 acrobats, acclaimed Chicago chef Rick Bayless, and all that guacamole even fit into a 200-seat house. Eastland, a musical about one of the gravest disasters in American history, makes me want to get up and dance.
That's life, it rearranges things to pay thee, but you don't think it means it'll never go back. You'll be back on track just as soon as everything starts to lean back.
Sitaram? 2 words. The bomb.
Okay, will you please?
Oh, hi, David. You should come back on The Late Show sometime. Call me when you have a job.
Oh, Stephen, that is so...
Life sucks? Though life might on occasion, that show certainly did not. And for a brilliant meditation on life that does suck, beyond caring anyone, the theatrical tapestry of hits goes on and on. And on. Lookingglass is more than a theater. It's practically destined that it should reside in the castle-like water tower waterworks, reminiscent of the ancient one in Scotland where the conversation began. What better home than one used for channeling a life-giving element to Chicago, with its behemoth, ever-vigilant, ever-churning machinery? Lookingglass is a utility, as important to Chicago and beyond as water, electricity, and roads. Let's take a moment now to look back on what we've uncovered in search of Lookingglass. To this company, and all who make it what it is, the artists, teachers, staff, board, funders, and most essentially the students, patrons, and you, and to this community, Lookingglass is a state of mind, limited only by whatever limits imagination.
With Stephen Colbert's bucket on my head, I'm Phil Smith.
Or am I? Is it magic or Lookingglass?
Mary Zimmerman. That's how you say it.